All right, here we go. Part two of the death of the sod. No, I'm joking. Part two of the old count. All right, so we talked about like how, if you're a new boss or you've been giving them crap or they're giving you crap, how they can mess up your count, so you turn in your count, the picket boss turns in their count or whatever, and then let's say your count is just wrong. Then the desk boss got to come down there, and usually the desk boss has been there a long time, and let me back up. So you turn in your counts, your desk boss will then turn in their count, and they will call it up front where the captain or the lieutenant or the sergeant, whoever's running count, will say like that's right or wrong, and they call the desk boss back, and they'll be like, hey, moron, and on J-Pod, count is off, have them recount. So now the boss got to go down there, and they call on the phone, and they'll be like recount, and so now there has to be a whole nother recount. And if you still get it wrong, then the desk boss will come down. And if the desk boss come down, they're going to look at you like you're a real POS, you're a moron, you can't do something as simple as count. And they usually know what the problem is right away because they have a sheet that says exactly where everybody's going to be. And they look at your sheet and they say, okay, well, he's saying nobody is in this cell, and this person, or they're saying he said somebody's in this cell, but that guy is really counted over here because he's at work. You know what I mean? They know what the problem is sometimes, but you're running around like a damn idiot trying to count because sometimes the inmates have messed with you by, being out of place, and that's being somewhere where they're not supposed to be, or kind of jumping in and out of a line and not getting counted or whatever. So it can be a real pain in the ass, and there's a lot of pressure at count time. It's the most stress that a boss is probably under all night long, is to make sure these damn counts are done right, because guess what? If somebody's not where they're supposed to be, that means they could be what are they doing? Escaping. You know what I'm saying? And that's a hell of a problem. So anyway, and that's what it kind of looks like in population, and it sucks. But back there in SEG, nobody's getting in and nobody's moving in and out of the cell. So it's real easy, real fast to run there, and there's one person in each cell. So it's not that big of a hard at all back there in SEG, I even heard about bosses that would, pencil whip counts knowing like nobody is moving in or out the whole night. You know what I'm saying? So, and they may go back and, just change their count if an inmate has a use of force and has to be moved or something like that. But that's rare. It's not a common occurrence. I've heard that happens. I don't know 100% for sure, but counts are so important because it puts you out there in the section in SEG, and it lets the other inmates know that you're moving around, you're doing what you're supposed to be doing, and there's a presence there, and they, because they could be trying to whittle themselves out of their cell. And I'll talk about an attempted escape that happened maybe on another video and stuff, and where like you could, it's jacked up. But anyway, yeah, count sucks, count time sucks. And what sucks the most, especially back there up there in population, where you can, let's say you start your 1 o'clock count, and things don't really, first of all, you'll hear prepare to count. And then a few minutes later, you'll hear count time. All movement stops. No boss is moving. Nobody's moving other than the boss doing the count. And then, so let's say the count wasn't correct. That means, the count wasn't correct, but that clock is still ticking, still moving. And guess what? You got another count at 2 o'clock. So your 1 o'clock count is ticking away. And meanwhile, your 2 o'clock count has to happen. And there's been many nights where right before the 2 o'clock count, you'll hear somebody get on the intercom and they'll go, count has cleared. And then you'll right after that, you'll hear count time. You know what I mean? Because guess what? Now we're counting again. And you spend a whole lot of your shift counting living, breathing human beings. And it sucks. And there's a lot of pressure there especially for newer bosses or slower bosses, older bosses. And sometimes you'll know which pod. You might hear the desk boss say, this pod is having a hard time with their count tonight. And you'll know exactly what boss is working down there, and that'll tell you why, they're having a hard time with count, depending on whether it's a bad boss or a slow boss or an old boss or whatever. But that's what count time in the penitentiary is like.